All right. Okay. Nobody's here again. That's okay. You know, last set that nobody was here was intense, but this one, I'm gonna be coolin'. No bam bam. No get it brackin'. No get it crackin'. None of that shit. No. This is Goodnight Thursday. It's all for love. Love is the answer. Word. All right, let's get pulling from the bucket. All right. Oh, this one is a mail-in from somebody who has known me for a very long time, who actually knew me through this trauma. So, RX, writing, the best prescription. I haven't seen this. I don't know what is written on this. I don't even know if it's the right person, but I think it's the right person. So, yeah, let's get it going. Tell you one thing, he did a great job, if it's him, did a great job of packaging this shit. It's another envelope. Okay. Wow, we're playing like fucking origami here. Jesus. I typed it. All right, cool. All right, let's read this together. How has the creative writing process enabled you to evolve as a person with a physical disability, and how would you instill this confidence in others on a similar journey? I fucking love this guy. Yeah. The creative writing process, I don't say it was the best prescription for the theater or dramatics. I say that it was the best prescription for me because it allowed me to understand what I was going through. Pulling these thoughts that I didn't want to have out of myself and putting it onto a document, whether that be in the form of a short story, in the light of a journal entry, or a poem, or a script. I put all of this pain into that written word, into that equation that I don't know how to explain it off the top of my head right now, but it's just something that just came from me. That also allowed me to grow. It brought me into situations that I didn't think I'd find myself in, being 14 and speaking at a college, and then 15 doing the same thing, and that was all through. I didn't take it as creative writing at the time, but it was creative writing, but I defined it as therapy. This is something I need to do. These are thoughts I don't want to have, so I need to place them somewhere else, and that's in the written word. And I'm so thankful I did that because, like I said before, it has allowed me to evolve and continue to grow as a person born out of this trauma. And the trauma definitely impacted the quality of the written word. And the quality of the written word wasn't always taken as such a good thing to have. I definitely raised the alarms of certain people through my written word, but that was the true written word. That was my honest and unadulterated truth that I put into these stories, that I really formulated into these, what I call silent songs, because, yeah, I'm on a stage right now, but I'm not gonna start singing. That's not me. I'm the silent type. I'm the one who has the written word as my power, as my swinging sword. If I could give any advice to anybody who has gone through something and they need to come up with a way on how to rationalize it, or not even rationalize it, because I wouldn't encourage you to do that. I would encourage you to live, and just live, and see what that brings you. But if you have something in you that you don't know how to deal with, the written word is the best prescription I can give you. It's another drug that I deal in. It's that written word. It's, taking all of this that's just going on. And we all have something that's going on inside of us. But taking that out, putting it into what I do a lot is a silent song, and that's just a poem or whatever. If you have a short story that you want to write and it's in the light of yourself, but you don't have to tell people that's in the light of yourself, do that. Because that's what I did. And for me, it worked out. But just like with anything, it hasn't been easy. And it definitely wasn't taken as a very popular movement, just like love wasn't all that popular, at least in the light. In the shadows, though, people loved my written word. But that's not the point of this. The point of this is to really describe and illustrate on how important that written word was. In that creative writing process, I needed to use my reality to inform what art I created, even though I don't look at it as art. It is art. But I needed to use this reality, this wild, crazy ride that I've been on since I was 13 years old, and put my all into the written word. And by doing that, I create stories like Live and Let Die. Or, take 3 nights and write something like Inspired by Plight. Or other things that I haven't put out. That's the real crux of what the term or the saying or the idea of writing being the best prescription for me is. And I feel like I answered everything. Yeah. To evolve as a person with a physical disability, well, there's an issue with that, because I never looked at my situation as having a physical disability. That goes hand in hand with the shame I walked around with. That didn't feel fair to say I was disabled, even if I was. I couldn't write with this hand for a while. I had to go into different rooms to do quizzes and tests with the teacher who wrote the answers for me after, hearing what I said as the answer. Certain things, like when I began driving, using this hand for switching the gears, was a little bit difficult at first, but just like with anything, with time, that burden is, that weight is lessened. That weight is not there as much as it once was. This bicep felt like it was going to explode at some points, but I couldn't do anything to control it, because these signals from having such a head trauma as I did, these signals would just send everything all crossed, and I would be there and sitting in my bedroom, a classroom, a dorm, or whatever it was, at work, or even till this day when I'm at work, or sitting at home writing, or even doing the dishes. I live with this thing. It is a disability, but I never saw it as such. So unfortunately, I don't know how to answer that question for myself, but if anybody is out there listening and you have a disability and you recognize it as your disability and you want to use something to cope with that, the best advice I can give you is write it. Write it down. Write what you feel. Write without any rules. You create that world. You create the rules. There. Do that. Continue to write. Write. And see what comes out. Yeah. That's a good one. Thank you, anonymous individual who I know whose name is, but I'm not going to say that on the stage. Thank you for that question. Let's keep going. Yeah. All right. Completely random. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just going to touch it. All right. Being and feeling ageless. I alluded to it before, but once I turned 14 in the hospital, I didn't know what it meant to be a kid anymore. I didn't know where my feelings were supposed to be in conjunction with the age I was. I haven't known what that's supposed to feel like since I was 14. I'm 22 going on 23 this year. I don't know what the average 22-year-old feels like. I had no idea what a 21-year-old should feel like. My experience has given me this real sped up path of, I was disconnected from all of those kids that I knew. That was a given. We were never going to see each other in the same light again. I knew that very early on. Even when I got to college, I had no idea what to think in conversations with those people because they spoke a different tongue. They spoke about music that was on the radio and music I didn't relate to at all, or I didn't even recognize, because these were completely different tastes and different ideas and different trends, and I hadn't known what a trend was in a long time at that point once I entered college in 2019. But feeling, I'll say 14, because that's when it started, feeling 14 or being 14 and feeling ageless. Going on from that, it was a moment when something from my old life was still there in the new life, because I was always around older people. Whether it was family members who were older or friends of the family who were older. I was always around older people. After that was amplified and really a defining characteristic of my life, I enjoyed being around those older people much more than I did any of the young people who were in the space I was in. That goes for up until today. I have my people, and they are my people, and those people are within the same age of myself, but I can also go to my grandfather's house and chop it up with him for 5 hours just talking about music. Or, years ago when my Friday nights were no longer watching movies with the sound off and having it be 1 o'clock in the morning and we're sleeping in the same room, having a conversation like it is the most important conversation that anybody has had in the existence of the human race. My Friday nights were now, I'm on a fishing boat with this guy who's in his 50s and he's talking to me about Clint Eastwood movies. I loved that. I absolutely loved that. I just sat there and learned from him, and he showed me how to cut down a tree with a chainsaw or harvest honey from a beehive, or not even just him, but other people who just gave me these lessons. I'll go back to it a couple weeks ago, a conversation with my neighbor who's 93 fucking years old. 93. That's the oldest person I've ever dealt with. 93 fucking years old. This guy was born in the 1930s. We're in the 2020s. Holy shit. I loved sitting there and speaking to him for 3 hours because I was learning stuff. I was learning that we're not all that different. Like, yes, he may be 93 and I'm 22 years old, but he described his story, his situation to me in such a way that it didn't feel like we had that much of a distance between us with the understanding. Experience, yeah, he triumphs me tenfold. But as far as just having a normal conversation and being adopted by an older crowd, something I've had for a long time now, I love I love being there. I take no issue with that, feeling ageless. I take absolutely no issue with that. That's something I am proud to feel. Going back in time, yeah, it was difficult to work through, but I had always known what it felt like to understand things from an older perspective. Growing up, I was always around older people. I was always learning things that I probably shouldn't have learned in retrospect, but it gave me things that I'm going to keep. And I continue to learn from these older people. And I love having that experience. And once it gets to the point of they ask about me, oh, it's the same look every single time. I get this thing where it's like you're watching a good movie, you're on the edge of your seat waiting for me to say what's next, and I don't present myself as this fantastical account of whatever the fuck, but these older individuals always look at me like it is that case. You're watching something that is just taking grip of you, and you can't let go. And that's how I look at them. I love sitting on that fishing boat, hearing this guy talk about movies that I'll never watch. But hearing the passion, or him explaining to me how certain things that he does at his job work, or how they started. It's a beautiful thing, and just that interaction, those became my new friends. People who were in their 40s and 50s. And I'll say it now, that 93-year-old, he's my friend. You know, he may live down the street from me and we're not, buddy-buddy, but anytime I see him, I treat him as a friend. Not just as a 93-year-old who I had one conversation with. No, I'm glad to consider him a friend. Never thought I'd say that at 22 years old, but such is life. And that's really what everything I have to say goes down to. Such is life. But yeah, being 14 and feeling ageless. That's a beautiful thing. And there's always going to be beauty in the darkness. You think, I felt ageless. Yeah, I didn't feel a place, but I found my place through being adopted by an older crowd. Yeah. I think, one thing that's popped into my head. I say I embraced it. It did get to a point where I wanted to make up for time that I felt like I didn't experience, aka those teenage years, that reckless abandon. College had me in a certain mindset where, and once I first got there, I wanted to make up for time that was lost. But there were cheap imitations of a life that was no longer, a life that I didn't experience, and such is life. And in those moments, I didn't feel good. I felt bad because being in empty dorms and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, it was a bad religion. It was a bad, bad religion. Yeah, that's why I'll stop with that. I won't go into any more detail about that right now out of the respect for a lot of people who may or may not see this. See me be Parappa the Yappa up on this stage. But yeah, I think I got everything with that one. Yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep it going. All right. All right. This one, deserves a lot more time, so I'm going to choose another one. And you know what? Fuck the randomness. I'll just choose this one, see what this one is. Oh, this is a two-parter. All right. So this one is the burden of time and holding on to time, semicolon, a youthful era. Let me start here. I always had an affair with time. And I say I always had an affair with time because affairs are supposed to be forbidden. It's like temptation. You don't want to go into affairs. My relationship with time always felt like an affair because it never felt right. It felt wrong. And then moving and growing from this trauma, time was my friend, time was my enemy, time was my hope. Time has always taken me to places where, I'll say this. When I was a kid, I remember finding music like Rockin' Robin, having a bedroom that had a door on it that I could close, and being in that bedroom, listening to that music, and dancing my little fucking heart out to a song like Rockin' Robin. I wanted to have a stage to do that. And not saying a stage where I'm broadcast doing that, but having a point where I can have people dancing around with me to Rockin' Robin. And time defined that because I watched all of these things, whether it be a movie, TV show, or real people. They always had something I didn't, and that was the group or the social stage to sing and dance to whatever their song was. Mine was Rockin' Robin. And that's why I say time was a burden, because I didn't have enough of it. And growing up was never feasible. It wasn't sustainable. Before I had this hard reset, I just went year by year, day by day. Took what I can out of that day, out of that year. Pull worth from it, pull purpose from it, pull substance from it. But the burden of time always put me in the way of myself because it didn't feel like enough. One friend wasn't enough, two friends weren't enough. I needed 4 friends, and we needed to define ourselves as a unit, as a squadron. We needed to be a team. We needed to be a little family. The most I got with that was this youthful era that I have referred to more times than I can count, sitting on this exact stage. That youthful era, 2015, marked a point when I hit the pinnacle of this youthful era. The one who took me under her wing and gave me the space to be free was the greatest friend I could ever ask for. And that came with time. Being always armed with self-preservation. From a very young age, when I shouldn't even known what self-preservation was, and walking through hallways or being the new kid at school, that all subsided come 2015. Come 2015, I was the coolest person I had ever known. I was this idea. I became it. I was Voltron. I came into my final form. And that was a time when I took life for granted. Every day was promised. Every single day was promised. I didn't worry about waking up tomorrow. No, fuck that. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow. Yeah, hell yeah, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow. I didn't fly too close to the sun. I was circling the sun. I was comfortable right there, circling the sun. And then you hit the ground, baby. You hit the ground real hard. Knocked on the door of death and came out alive. I don't recognize the fighting for my life or being strong or brave. I don't recognize that at all. What I see is something that happened because it needed to happen. So time had a different definition of seeing time as a burden now. Because time was what it always is. And it's a measure of minutes, seconds, and periods of these moments of life. But for me, time got to the point where I couldn't stop seeing that coolest person. I couldn't stop seeing that naive, I won't call him a young man, I'll call him a little boy. I couldn't stop seeing that naive little boy who walked in the hallways. That went beyond high school. I got out of high school. I did that, graduated, went straight off to college. I still felt that little boy in me when I was at college, in those empty dorms at 3 a.m., and it was a bad religion. But I'm always gonna hold on to that time because that little boy, no matter what flaws I can take with him with the benefit of hindsight, retrospect, whatever you want to call it, he was a kid. And that's something I'm never going to let go of. I'm never going to let go of an inner child. I'm never going to let go of that spirit to where I have a relationship with life where I have a larger than life idea of life itself. I was in second grade, wanted to be on the level of Spielberg. I was in a room with a gazillion and one pieces of Lego building bricks, building these little movie sets with a shitty camcorder that I got for Christmas, making these movies like I was Spielberg, like I was Nolan, like I was Hitchcock. I have never let go of that. That's where I got to make a correction from what I said last week. I don't know what bits and pieces of what I have now that he has. No, I still have that larger than life idea of life itself. I'm still alive. I am fucking still alive. So how could I not have a larger than life idea of life itself? I've done what I've done and I continue to do what I do. with that, I know that this life is going to continue to be wild. It's going to continue to be crazy. I'm going to have more stories on top of stories on top of stories. Maybe I meet a few more pretty girls. Maybe I make amends with people who are in my bad past or whatever. I'm going to continue to live life. I'm going to harness that little kid that's always going to live inside of here. I'm always going to harness him, and whether he's resting in peace or not, I'm going to keep a bit of him within me. That confidence that he had, I don't know where I got that from. But come, self-publishing my first title in 2020, I had to have confidence to do that, to believe in myself. Was that a piece of him calling from the past saying I can't do it? I don't know. Because my experience is much different than any experience that he had. He had trauma, don't get me wrong. He had traumatic moments that he and I can look back on. But never was he placed into a position where he had to work hard beyond third quarter and grades start to dip, so fourth quarter he comes out on top. Fucking nah. I don't recognize the fighting for my life, but I know that I woke up and I chose to live. That wasn't a mindful effort, it's just what happened. Holding on to time, a youthful error, it goes hand in hand with the burden of time, but the burden of time doesn't imply a negative thing. The burden of time doesn't invite anything that is just sad. It doesn't invite only sadness. It doesn't invite despair. It doesn't invite anger. It doesn't invite rage. No, the burden of time invites hope. Because I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. I got to keep that with me. Hope is a motherfucker, but hope is another drug I deal in. Hope, I have to have hope. Hope brings me to this point on a stretch of land where I am going to run that mile back and forth. And even if I get to the end of that mile, I'm going to do another mile and then maybe a mile on top of that. I'm going to do that. Hope gives me that. I was 17 when I started writing what became my debut title. Hope kept me going. Moving on from senior year of high school into freshman year of college and being in a dorm where I should have been in class, writing this story, and then come the turn of the next year, and then almost into the year after that, I was staring at billboards that I put up to promote that book. Hope gave me that. Hope comes with the burden of time. And hope is just like love. It's going to keep me going. Hope is definitely in that tank. Yeah. I think I got everything with that. I think so. Let's see if anything sparks up anything just by looking at these again. I don't know. I think of one more thing to say with this topic. The burden of time also, I moved faster than time itself. I did. I was catapulted into adulthood. And weeks before that, we were riding our bikes after the final bell rang. I was catapulted into be a man, whatever the fuck that means. Or grow up, because you have to. And it's inescapable. It was inescapable for me. I grew up. There is a tinge of sadness in saying this, but I grew up too fast. My childhood went elsewhere a long, long, long time ago. But it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. I think we got it with that one. Yeah. Now, let's see if I pulled everything from the bucket or there's one line here. No, not yet. Okay. So this one. Let's call my friends from land elsewhere and say, all right, kids, gather around the fire. My voice hurts. I can't do the voice right now. This one. I knew too much. I knew too much. I knew too much. There's an astonishment with everybody who meets me and everybody who met me after or who tried to meet me again after. And it's the astonishment of heart. The astonishment of this what was a young but exceedingly old heart. This heart that I wore on my chest, I wore on my sleeve, I put it on my socks, I tied my shoes with it, it was on my pants, I put my heart everywhere. This astonishment of heart put me in the position of knowing too much. I knew too much. Last week, all the pretty girls was another way of saying I knew too much. I don't say all the pretty girls for any funny reason. I say all the pretty girls because I dealt with a lot of girls who, yeah, they were pretty, they were beautiful, they were gorgeous. There's no denying that. They were all very, gorgeous people. But I knew them for who they were not prescribed to being. I knew them as themselves. I knew too much. I knew too much. Why? You called me when you were in the shower and not ring ring call me. No, you called me on the video while you were in the shower. Why? To tell me your boyfriend to tell me your boyfriend cheated on you again. I knew too much. I knew who was dunted on when they were a kid. I knew how your childhood was taken away from you and you had no control over that. And then I come to find out I'm the only person to know that beyond your perpetrator and you. I knew too much. Why did I know too much? This astonishment of heart. I wasn't going to speak up and say I don't need to know that. No, it was, I sat there with you before the first bell in the parking lot, and you told me that you were dunted on when you were a kid. Taken advantage of. Part of you destroyed and part of you that you'll never get back. I will not lie for a second in speaking about that. When I say I did not want to know that, I was the only person to know that. It was poison for me to know that. I knew too much. You hadn't even told your parents, and we were talking about a decade plus since you were dunting on it when you were a kid. But you trusted me with it. And the only issue, not even issue, the only thing going on in my head when I learned things like that was, why me? Why was it that all of this pain was given to me? But in this particular case, I think I knew why. And we're going back to 16, 17 years old. I'm still very young in the definition of age, but mentality, maturity, yeah, that does not apply. It's not applicable. I want to say I grew up in this house, but I didn't. I grew up in the sound of music. I grew up under the trees, building those forts, thinking that I can make a fucking bat cave because I had a larger than life idea of life itself. Going under those trees after the fact, that was an escape. An escape from what? A violent household. Physically, not for the most part, but emotionally, verbally, and that was World War 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 all put together. Somebody who had violent outbursts with words. We had to listen. We couldn't turn the volume on the TV or the stereo high enough to drown that noise out. That didn't change after 2015. I knew too much because mi madre mi dear mom, mama fucking Mia. Here we go again. She came into the doorway of that bedroom, but no, tears weren't in her eyes. This was pattern, tears weren't in her eyes. But her eyes spoke, and her eyes said, let's go for a ride. And I went for those rides. Those rides usually ended at a restaurant, telling me about everything that was wrong in your life. I wasn't not related. I wasn't bound through one-way friendships to all the pretty girls. No. All the pretty girls owned the house, or at least one of the pretty girls owned the house that I lived in. House that I always looked for an escape from. I knew too much. You told me everything, but you know that it would just be excused. That violent outburst, that verbal assault. Take that experience, mix it in with what I was going through, who I was becoming, on a very bolted path, and place me in the car of somebody who was dunted on when they were a kid. I knew too much. I knew about who was unhappy in their marriage. How did I know that? How did I know that? Well, gathered around the fire, your hands were on my, get the fuck away from me. There are 30 plus years in between you and I. I knew too much. You're unhappy in your marriage because your hands are on my too close for comfort. Don't hug me, I'm scared. Don't hug me, I'm scared. And that's not an isolated event. That was multiple times. I knew too much. What would that answer be? I'm 17, 18, 19 years old. What the fuck would that answer be? You want to go upstairs? You're 30 plus years older than I. Get your fucking hands off of me. I knew too much. This astonishment of heart, this thing. You were dunted on when you were a kid. You tell me that. You only told me that. It was poison for me to know. Let's turn the clock 5 years into the future. You asked me for a child. I don't like giving up on people, but yeah, I knew too much. Yeah. Oh, fucking man, I knew too much. What else? Is this a new card? No. Think we got pulled from the bucket. Said this one was going to be intense, but I don't know. See, Theron Maynard, Vessel from the Stars. What's this one? Oh, okay. I had a conversation the other day with somebody. They asked me, what is this? What is Goodnight Thursday? And I said, watch part 3, part 4, part 1, part 2, and keep watching. I'm not going to explain that right now. I'm not. But they said something. They said I was an inspiration. And just like with I don't recognize fighting for my life, I don't recognize being an inspiration. I don't. But if I were to think where my agency is, what this is, what I choose to do in life, what my hope gives me, what my love gives me, I wouldn't even say it's agency. I have the urgency for a portrait of a world with everyday people. Because that's a beautiful thing. And with that, I think I'm going to say goodnight Thursday. keep coming back. Peace, peace. Love you. Good night. Cut it.